On January 13, 1903, a ship called the SS Gaelic docked in Honolulu, Hawaii. On board were 102 passengers from Korea, ordinary people seeking opportunity, escape, and hope. That moment would mark the beginning of a Korean-American journey that would span more than a century. A journey of hardship, resilience, identity, and transformation. Today, over 1.7 million Korean Americans live across the United States. Yet, the collective story of their struggle and their silence remains largely unknown to the American mainstream. This is that story. At the turn of the 20th century, Korea was a nation under siege. Ravaged by famine, corruption, and a looming threat of Japanese imperialism, many Koreans faced a future with little promise. In 1902, when American labor recruiters opened an office in Incheon, hundreds of Koreans signed up for the unknown, drawn by promises of decent wages, education for their children, and the dream of returning home wealthy. The majority were recruited to work on Hawaiian sugar plantations. Posters promised $15 a month, free housing, and Sundays off, but the reality was far different. The work was brutal. Long hours under the sun, cramped quarters, and racial segregation were things that they were all privy to. Koreans were just one group in a hierarchy that put them below white workers, but sometimes even beneath Japanese laborers, despite arriving in smaller numbers. Still, the American immigrants endured. Among them were farmers, miners, political dissidents, and church members. Many were Christians, converted by American missionaries in Korea, who now found solace in Hawaiian churches that doubled as community centers, schools, and sanctuaries. They formed self-governing associations, resisted Japanese occupation from afar, and educated their children with the belief that learning was both liberation and survival. "We came out of an honorable country to the paradise of the Pacific," wrote Emson Char, an early Korean leader who later became a camp supervisor. He built community rules that banned gambling and drinking, promoted respect for women, and created a sense of Korean dignity in foreign soil. But by 1905, Japanese influence in Korea and Hawaii halted Korean immigration. Japan did not want Koreans competing with their own laborers and lobbied the US to close the doors. Yet the Korean presence in America had only just begun. In 1910, Japan officially annexed Korea. Suddenly, Koreans abroad had no country. They were classified as Japanese nationals, but lived with no allegiance to the empire that had colonized them. Korean American identity was born out of this dislocation. The Korean National Association formed, organizing everything from census taking to marriage arrangements. It was as much about cultural survival as it was about resistance. The KNA published over 20 Korean language newspapers and sent funds to support the independence movement. In 1919, Koreans inside and outside of Korea rose in protest during the March 1st movement, a non-violent call for independence. The Japanese crackdown was swift and violent, but the spirit of resistance rippled through the diaspora. In Philadelphia, where the US Declaration of Independence was born, Korean Americans held their own Korean Congress. From Boston to San Francisco, Korean Americans demonstrated, published manifestos, and funded schools and orphanages. Two figures stood at the center of this movement, Syngman Rhee and An Chang-ho. Rhee, educated at Harvard and Princeton, was a fiery orator who lobbied US politicians. An Chang-ho, by contrast, embodied humility and sacrifice, enrolling in second grade to learn English and inspiring Koreans to build moral strength through hard work. "Picking one orange with care in an American orchard helps our country," he told fellow laborers. But even as they resisted Japan, Korean Americans remained outsiders in their new country. Anti-Asian racism ran deep, interracial marriage was illegal, and they could not become US citizens. Despite their patriotism, with many even serving in World War I, they remained invisible. The end of World War II brought both hope and new sorrow. Korea was freed from Japan, but immediately was split into two. The Korean War in 1950 made that division permanent. In the United States, a second wave of Korean immigration had begun. War brides, adoptees, and refugees made up most of the new arrivals. Between 1950 and 1964, about 15,000 Koreans came to the US. The war orphans, many of mixed race, were often adopted by white Christian families. They faced a triple stigma: abandoned, mixed race, and uprooted from their culture. War brides married American servicemen, but found themselves isolated, neither accepted by Korean nor American communities. Others came as students, businessmen, or professionals. They faced less overt racism, but were still expected to assimilate quietly. The McCarran-Walter Act of 1952 allowed Korean immigrants to become naturalized U.S. citizens. It was a small but critical shift in the Korean American identity, a step towards belonging. But the most significant changes were seen with the passage of the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act. By removing the racist quota system, the U.S. opened its doors to Korean families once again. The third wave of immigrants was vastly different. These immigrants were often educated, middle class, and ambitious. Many were fleeing political repression under South Korea's military regimes. Others came for their children's education. They poured into urban centers, Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago. They opened grocery stores, dry cleaners, gas stations, and nail salons. By 1990, 1 in 4 Korean Americans was self-employed, the highest rate of any ethnic group. But this success came at a cost. Most Korean business owners set up shop in poor, predominantly Black or Latino neighborhoods. Language barriers and cultural misunderstandings fed resentment. To many local residents, the Korean grocer behind the counter was not a neighbor, but a foreigner profiting from the community without participating in it. To Korean Americans, however, these stores were survival. They worked 12 to 14 hours a day, often with children helping after school. Many endured harassment and even violent crimes. In this period, Korean Americans lived between two silences, ignored by white America and alienated from other communities of color. As racial tensions grew across urban America, Korean Americans were caught in the crossfire, both literally and metaphorically. Throughout the 1980s, American media began to notice tensions brewing. In New York, boycotts against Korean stores sparked headlines. In Los Angeles, reports of friction between Korean merchants and Black customers surfaced. But these incidences were rarely contextualized. Few understood the structural conditions, redlining, disinvestment, and racialized urban planning that placed Korean shopkeepers in economically abandoned communities. Nor did they understand the trauma and fear that Korean immigrants carried of Japanese colonization, of military dictatorship, of starting from zero in a strange land. To the Black community, Korean Americans seemed aloof, economically privileged, and unaware of local struggles. To Korean Americans, Black Americans appeared angry and aggressive, often portrayed as dangerous in Korean media. This mutual alienation festered. Neither group was taught the other's history, and in white mainstream America, neither was fully seen. By the 1990s, second-generation Korean Americans began to come of age. Educated in the US, fluent in English, and politically aware, they began organizing around civil rights, immigrant justice, and multiracial coalitions. Groups like the Korean American Resource and Cultural Center and the National Korean American Service and Education Consortium emerged. They challenged the stereotype of Korean Americans being apolitical or insular. But the turning point came in 1992. What began as outrage over the acquittal of 4 white officers who beat Rodney King quickly turned into a citywide rebellion. Amidst the chaos, more than 2,000 Korean-owned businesses were destroyed. Koreatown was left to burn, largely unprotected. The images shocked Korea and Korea America alike. Men with rifles on rooftops, families weeping in the ashes. The world asked, who are these people and why were they left to defend themselves? To answer that, we must not look only at the riot, but at the silence that came before it. The silence between communities, the silence of history unspoken, the silence of being both seen and unseen. In part 2 of this documentary series, we examine the Los Angeles uprising, not just as an event, but as a symptom of America's racial wounds, and a wake-up call for Korean Americans to claim their voice, their history, and their place in the struggle for justice.